Things are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
What is happening, everyone, and welcome back to another wild episode of Animat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. How are you all doing? And I hope you all had a wonderful weekend, because I can pretty much say right now, and by the way, thank you, TK, for the subscription there, but I had quite an eventful weekend, especially with the fact that on October 5th, which was a Thursday this year, it was my birthday. So as a result, the weekend was just fully reserved with just all the birthday celebrations and also the holiday celebrations, because as I am recording this, it is Thanksgiving in Canada. So you could probably imagine that it can be pretty tiring going from your birthday and then immediately afterwards going to Thanksgiving, which yesterday I had that with my family. So it, like, the past few days really has been just this massive round of holiday celebrations, of birthday celebrations, and social gatherings with family and friends. So yes, it's been quite eventful. And there was a part of me that was considering maybe I'll just go and take a break today. There hasn't been a whole lot of animation news, but it looks like there have been a sufficient amount to go and have a discussion. Maybe not all of them are necessarily animation related, but there's a lot of crazy stories to go and discuss. But I will admit this is going to be a shorter episode with just 4 stories instead of the usual 5, but don't worry, we will still have a great time with it. And also, I just want to say I am aware with what has recently been happening in Israel, in which it looks like we have a war going on, another war on top of what's already been happening in Ukraine and stuff like that. But I mean, it is kind of a similar case in which I am aware that the president or the leader of Israel is a bit of a dictator and rules with an iron fist through authoritarianism. And I mean, with authoritarian-minded rulers and stuff like that, war and devastation is bound to happen. So hopefully we will see the downfall of the authoritarianism that's been plaguing Israel, and that the people will be safe. So my heart goes to the people of Israel, and that this senseless war will be over soon. All right, so with that said and done, now I would like to go into the chat wall, and it's time that I ask you all, are you all prepared for today's episode of Animat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Yeah! Are you ready, folks? Let me hear it. Oh, King Cerulean, perfect timing with that. That is great to hear, and I do see many of these people preparing. We're all ready. That's great to hear. And now it is time that we shall go and get things started with this episode. And with our first story, by the way, we actually got something that you would never think that we would go and discuss again here. I got a trailer. Now, I know some of you might be wondering, whoa, hold on there, Matt. Aren't you not allowed to go and talk about trailers, mainly because of the actor strike and to stand in solidarity with them? Well, yes, that is true. However, the project that I will be talking about is not associated with the strike. It's not a movie, it's not based on a show, it's not directly linked with anything that the actors are striking for. What this is, however, is an independent video game. And even if there would be this upcoming video game actor strike going on, this one would not be affected whatsoever. So technically, I am allowed to go and discuss about this. However, just a fair warning, this will be a very short trailer. So with that said, let's go ahead and start things off with our first story, as we will be taking a look at the upcoming independent horror game, Winnie's Hole.
When life seems not to go our way, am I amiss? Am I okay?
Christopher.
was Winnie's Hole, to which it is described, just reading from the link here, just reading from the description on the video from IGN, saying that it is a 2D strategy dungeon crawler rogue elite RPG, which is developed by Twice Different. And apparently this game is going to be coming out later this year. Yeah, just that. We don't necessarily have a release date. It just says that this is going to be coming soon in 2023, and that's pretty much it. Now, I will say, though, that technically, when it comes to Winnie's Hole, this trailer in particular, it already came out a few months ago, so people were already aware of the existence of this video game in particular. But the reason why I want to go and bring it up right now is because apparently this trailer resurfaced, or it played again at some kind of event, and it got the subject of Winnie the Pooh in the public domain talking again. Like, that apparently became a little bit of a trending topic for people to go and discuss on social media. And not to mention that considering that Winnie the Pooh has once again entered into the horror genre, this is not necessarily the first time. You may recall soon after it was revealed that Winnie the Pooh has entered the public domain, or at least the first book of Winnie the Pooh, they would go and announce this new horror movie called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And that's where people would go and begin discussing about the public domain and how people would go and use it and all that kind of stuff. And on top of that, it's actually very much a coincidence that the subject would go and reappear last week because, well, I might as well go and make an announcement. But it is official. I've officially recorded it. It is now done. Coming this October, there will be a new Animat Watches of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Yes, I've already prepared that. Admittedly, I actually recorded a whole lot of material, so the biggest challenge of that was actually to go and cut it down to just under 40 minutes. But yes, I can pretty much go and confirm to say that at the end of this month, there will be an Animat Watches of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And considering that I was working on that last week, suddenly I see the internet was talking about Winnie the Pooh and its use of the public domain, and should he go and immediately enter into the horror genre and all that kind of stuff. Like, these subjects have just re-emerged once again, and it is primarily thanks to this trailer over here. Now, one thing that I just want to say right now, because I know that this is not necessarily a popular trailer and not everybody is really happy with the existence of Winnie's Hole. But I will say, and this might be a bit of a hot take, I feel like the game itself actually looks interesting. Like, the way that they would go and combine genres, and even when you do look at the trailer, like the way they would go and mix everything, and like you would have like a puzzle game that you got to do in order to go and grab like abilities and new limbs and jaws and stuff like that. And then like on top, you also got this RPG that's going on. Okay, so like you got a bit of mixed genres that's going on, and like you got ways that you could creatively build up your character. Okay, that is fine. That I could actually see some potential. That actually does look pretty cool. My only problem, however, is just the fact that, does it have to be Winnie the Pooh? Like, I really feel like the only reason why this game even exists, or the reason why that this has to be all Winnie the Pooh themed and stuff like that, is because of the factor that it's in the public domain, that now everybody is allowed to go and use it. And that is where we would find the issue, honestly. It's just the fact that they can do it just because. You know, it's not necessarily something that can go and really enhance the game itself. It's not necessarily something that is actually helpful in terms of the aesthetic. No, it's just the fact that now they can go and use it, and they can go and try to cash in on the whole Five Nights at Freddy's trend of taking something kid-friendly and turning it into something twisted and evil and like pretty horrific and maybe even violent at the same time, you know? Like, it just feels like one of those games that's trying to copy the success of Five Nights at Freddy's, but in this case, they want to turn Winnie the Pooh into something horrific. And not just Five Nights at Freddy's, but I would even say a similar case to Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, that they saw the massive hype that went behind the movie. I mean, like, I know that most people nowadays would say that the movie is just flat out terrible, and I can pretty much confirm, watching it myself, I would agree. Yeah, that was a pretty weak and pretty bad horror movie. But there was so much hype behind it, to the point that it was one of the most anticipated movies of the year. Like, people were legit freaking out about Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. So it is possible that in response to that, seeing that tremendous success also led to people trying to be copycats of Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, which is why we also got Winnie's Hole. Now, these are just my theories as to why this thing even exists, or especially why this needs a Winnie the Pooh theme onto this whole thing. But yeah, I could see how, like, the fact that they're taking the Winnie the Pooh property can really be a make or break deal. And for many people, they're just really turned off by it. And, like, it's starting to be a bit tiring of seeing that Five Nights at Freddy's aesthetic of just taking something that is kid friendly, and then you would go and turn that into, like, this monstrous horror piece and stuff like that. But then again, even if you take away the horror element, that doesn't necessarily mean that it would go and make things so much better. Because around the same time, there is an artist out there, and a really cool dude, JW Cartoonist, who actually discovered a public domain new project that is entirely based on Winnie the Pooh. And oh boy, is that it's a true sight to see. And by the way, this is apparently something that you can go find on Tubi, but his discovery that he made, you just gotta see this. So this is what, here, I'll actually go and make it full screen for you all. So here is what JW has discovered for us in terms of what they would do with Winnie the Pooh in the public domain. Maybe it's a little too big, but no, we could work with this.
That buzzing noise means something. You don't get a buzzing noise like that, just buzzing and buzzing without its meaning something. If there's a buzzing noise, someone's making a buzzing noise. And the only reason for making a buzzing noise that I know of is because you're a bee. And the only reason for being a bee that I know of is making honey. And the only reason for making honey is so I can eat it. Tra-la-la, tra-la-la, tra-la, oh, help, la, tra-la-la, 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 rum-tum-tiddlum-tum-till, rum-tum-tiddlum-tum. If I know anything about anything, that hole means rabbit, and rabbit means company, and company means food and listening to me humming and such like. Is anybody at home? What I said was, is anybody at home?
No.
Who found the tail? I. At 1:45, I found the tail.
Yeah, sorry that I made you all go through that, but that's apparently the new Winnie the Pooh adaptation that you could find on Tubi. And I just gotta say, like, I don't know what's the weirdest thing about this entire clip right here. I don't know, like, what is the most messed up part? Is it the fact that Winnie the Pooh spent like 40 seconds just to say, hey, look, there's honey? Is it Winnie the Pooh's massive ego? Like, this literally has to be the most egotistical Winnie the Pooh that I have ever seen. Honestly, this is this really is a Winnie the Pooh in which, like, he only cares about himself. Is it that little horror scene where you would see Winnie the Pooh just sticking out his head and Rabbit just hiding behind the wall, just like scared for his life? It's like, is anybody home? No! Or I don't know. Or is it that freaking weird laughing horse that just spun around? I don't know. It's honestly one of the weirdest Winnie the Pooh things I have ever seen. And that's really saying a lot, considering that I have seen both Blood and Honey and Winnie the Pooh Too Smart for Strangers. So yeah, that was, that exists. I think that's the best way to put it. Yeah, that exists. That's a thing, apparently. But yeah, with stuff like this, whether it be with Winnie's Hole or Tubi's Winnie the Pooh, it does bring up the subject in regards to public domain. And is it really a good idea to have the public domain in the first place if it's going to cause people to make such terrible adaptations like what we have just seen, or even with Blood and Honey and stuff like that? And I mean, I understand that, and I understand the mindset, because even I was like that too after watching Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. But JW would then go and put out another post in which, honestly, he brings up a very good point, and it is worth mentioning, of the fact that technically, when it comes to something like that, the problem is not necessarily the public domain itself. It's just the fact that when something does go into the public domain, that's just how it is. Because when something does enter into the public domain, that pretty much means that anyone and everyone is allowed to go and create their own version of Winnie the Pooh. That they could take the first book and they can go and do whatever they want with it, whether it be an adaptation, a loose adaptation, something kid-friendly, something adult. Like, they have the rights to do whatever they want and don't have to worry about copyright issues in the first place. And when you have more people going to adapt something like Winnie the Pooh, then that means there's a higher chance that there are going to be people who will make bad adaptations of Winnie the Pooh. But at the same time, it also means that there's a higher chance that people can go and actually make good adaptations of Winnie the Pooh. So, I mean, it's something that you have to go and expect, unfortunately, because when things are in the public domain, that means there's more people who are allowed to go and create their version of Winnie the Pooh, and it means that there's going to be more adaptations. And when there's more adaptations, that means that, well, with the more adaptations, the more likely that we're going to have both good and bad adaptations. And on this age of the internet, the bad ones often get highlighted, whether it be with Tubi's Winnie the Pooh or with Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. So we do get those examples right there. So it's honestly, I guess the best way to put it is that it's a fair trade, everybody can have the rights to go and adapt it, but at the same time, that means we're going to get a whole lot of really bad adaptations. But then again, there is that bright side where you would get good adaptations as well. And, even though, even if we're going to end up, with stuff like Tubi's Winnie the Pooh or even with Winnie's Hole, maybe it's going to be worth it if we do eventually wait and then suddenly someone will think of a good creative idea with Winnie the Pooh that people can go support. I mean, it is what it is, the more adaptations are out there, the more likely that there can also be some bad adaptations. But yeah, honestly, it's kind of messed up, but hopefully this whole trend of like taking child-friendly stuff and making them into like horror, gory, shock value, like monster projects kind of thing, like hopefully it will be done soon. Like honestly, for going back into Winnie's Hole, I could see the potential in the game itself, but then again, I understand why people are just sick and tired of the whole trend of just turning Winnie the Pooh into a horror icon. So honestly, I get that. All right, so with that said and done, I would like to go into the chat wall, and now I would like to ask you all, how do you feel about Winnie's Hole and the whole subject about Winnie the Pooh in the public domain? You know, I would like to know your piece on it. I know I've already expressed mine enough as is, so now it's your turn to go and have the mic on here. Okay, let's see. What? Okay, that was interesting, I guess. I'm sure MatPat and other people will come up with interesting things to say. Theories, reviews, and Let's Plays. I'm glad people are having fun with the public domain, and I think that's fine. Like, it's fine for horror films that can be made with Pooh, but Winnie's Hole sounds like an adult film version. Yeah, that's also another thing that a lot of people really complain about. It's just it's just the title itself, Winnie's Hole. Like, are you sure like you can't go and you can't think of something different? And considering that you're playing like this virus within Winnie the Pooh, like you can't say something like you can't think up of a title like Winnie's Insides or Winnie's Innards. I don't know, like I know that one sound like those ones sound weird, but you know, they do sound a bit better and a bit more accurate than Winnie's Hole. All right, so let's see what we got here. So is this the only idea people have with Winnie the Pooh now that it's public domain? Just messed up crap? I'll give credit that it does look a little intriguing. There's a few good ideas at play for a game, not the Tubi cartoon that feels like recreational drugs. But there's got to be something, some other things to do with the bear. I mean, just making an entire game from Owl's perspective, or to really piss off fans, make a game that's nothing but Tigger doing the default dance. Oh my god, yes. I think I know what you're talking about. Like, there's at one point, if you are referring to what I think you are referring to, there was at one point in, it's one of the more recent Winnie the Pooh series where there was Pooh, Tigger, and this little girl, not Christopher Robin. And at one point, Tigger decided that he was going to do the Fortnite dance. And I don't know if it was like, if it was done either before or after the time of Fortnite, but it was kind of weird seeing Tigger doing legit that dance. So yeah, honestly, why not just make a whole movie based on that? At least it will be different. At least it's not necessarily horror based, you know? Oh, let's see what else we got here. What are the comments? All I gotta ask is, do we really need this? Blood and Honey proves anything. Winnie the Pooh and horror didn't mix well, in my opinion. And that clip from the Tubi show, yeesh. Winnie is pretty stalkerish when he went inside Rabbit's house, and the horse, ew. And seriously, the name Winnie's Hole made me think of something dirty. Just why? Sounds like it came right out of Too Smart for Strangers. Okay, let's see. So we got another horror adaptation of Winnie the Pooh, and I'm already getting tired of it. It's yet another example of the whole turning something cute into something horrific cliche, which I think everyone is getting very tired of now. Funnily enough, we have recently seen a few dark adaptations of Pinocchio with Del Toro's movie and Lives of Pi, but those are far more accepted because the original tale of Pinocchio is already very dark, so it doesn't feel weird for him to get there. And I know, like, with something like this, people are now really opposed to the idea of making a horror-based Winnie the Pooh project. And I would go and argue that technically there can be ways where you can properly combine Winnie the Pooh and the horror genre. There are ways that they can legit mix well. But again, the fact that anyone can go and do it means that, well, it can be more likely that you'll see a bunch of bad stuff. And again, it's kind of like the trade-off of public domain. More people allowed to go and do whatever they want with it, more chances that we're also going to get a whole bunch of bad adaptations as well that nobody asked for. And that is definitely the case with what we have seen with either Blood and Honey or with Winnie's Hole. All right, let's see what else we got. I always find it odd when a popular media goes into public domain, like Winnie the Pooh. They tend to come across as unoriginal because they make it horror themed, and can't you just went into other genres? And as for saying they're trying to capture the same appeal as Five Nights at Freddy's, I find that comparison to be disingenuous because A, Five Nights at Freddy's is an original IP and not based on anything else, and B, I don't see MatPat making 300 theory videos exploring its overly complicated lore. Okay, well, I don't necessarily mean like exactly like Five Nights at Freddy's, but I would go and argue that Five Nights at Freddy's played a very big role in this cliche to become so popular nowadays. Like, I really do believe that it is thanks to Five Nights at Freddy's why we are seeing an abundance of independent horror games, or just the horror genre going into this realm of taking something that is considered family friendly or cute and turn it into something like very mature, very adult, very horrific, very gory, and all that kind of stuff. You know, like, maybe it's a more broad example of that, but I feel like Five Nights at Freddy's is the most popular of that genre, and and I would even say the one that debatably started this entire trend that we are seeing to this day. So that's why I made the Five Nights at Freddy's comparison. I know, like, some people could argue it's a bit of a stretch, but that's just from my perspective. All right, I think I'll read one more. Yeah, I'll read two more comments before we go and move on to our first break. May I ask why? Why make a horror-themed Winnie the Pooh game after witnessing the terrible horror movie in February? I was asking about this existence before you showed me that weird clip that was out on Tubi, which makes me ask again, why? I don't know which one is worse, but I really want to forget the horror theme of Winnie the Pooh altogether. Let it die for all I care. Okay, I am now in support of Disney killing the public domain. We now have Winnie the Pooh as a serial killer, Winnie the Pooh as John Carpenter's The Thing, and whatever the fridge that Tubi thing was. I will gladly have copyrights that last in perpetuity if we don't get crap like this. I really hope Disney's trademark protections for Mickey Mouse prevents the character from befalling the same fate. Yeah, I mean, again, that's kind of the trade-off with public domain. I mean, it could definitely be a good thing, but at the same time, you have to expect stuff like this to come out in which people are going to go and do whatever they want with it, or try to make a quick buck out of like the property that just went into the public domain, or they would go and do messed up stuff like this. I mean, again, I'm not like the commenter here. I'm not advocating against having like Winnie the Pooh or whatever popular character in the horror genre. But all I ask is just if you can do it well. I know some people can, but boy, it'll probably take time. All right, so we're going to go on to our first break. And when we do come back, I do have one major animation news that I got to admit, it's honestly pretty concerning. So stay tuned for that. And we're going to talk about the new big update in regards to DreamWorks Animation. All right, so let's now go and jump onto our next story here. And the update that I have is in regards to DreamWorks Animation. Now, just when you think that, you know, the future of DreamWorks is looking pretty bright, especially with the new project that they announced a while ago, in which I've already talked about in the last episode about The Wild Robot, which will be directed by Chris Sanders. Well, we are back to more unfortunate news with DreamWorks Animation, and their future is not only looking pretty bleak, but honestly, it's reflecting upon a pretty dark reality on how the animation industry is going to be in the future. And let's go and now talk about the DreamWorks Animation layoffs. Yes, unfortunately, there have been more firings at DreamWorks Animation. Not a massive one. It's not as bad as how it was at the start of 2015, but it's still a pretty unfortunate one. Now, the reason why this even happened in the first place is mainly because of its parent company, NBC Universal, who decided that they want to go and cut down production costs, and they have a pretty big mission to do so, and they say that their big goal is so that they can go and cut down all their production costs by 20%. And one of the tactics they want to do in order to achieve that is to go and make some unfortunate layoffs at DreamWorks Animation, where they say around 4% of the entire staff has been cut, which means that 70 jobs have been unfortunately let go. But that is not all, however. There's also another bit of news that they have actually revealed, and that is regarding of where they are going to be producing their animation. And they have actually revealed that now they have touched upon it in these past few years. They've been experimenting with it. But now it looks like they're going to be more and more dedicated to this practice where they are going to be outsourcing their animation, specifically at Sony Pictures Imageworks. Reading from my source here on Animation Magazine, it states right over here, it's the whole thing. Well, not the whole thing, but like this whole part. Sources at the studio revealed that execs have announced a new mixed production work model for feature films beginning with its 2025 releases, which includes an adaptation of Captain Underpants creator Dave Pilkey's Dogman, an unannounced project, and an unannounced sequel, the latter of which will be produced in partnership with Sony Pictures Imageworks in Vancouver, the same studio that brought you the animation for Sony Pictures Animation's movies, Netflix's The Sea Beast, Warner Brothers' Smallfoot, and many more. The tax breaks from producing in BC are an appealing part of the deal, in addition to Imageworks' track record. Prior to being named DreamWorks Animation's chief operating officer, Randy Lake was president of operations at Imageworks and was at the studio during the time it moved most of its production operations to Vancouver from the Los Angeles area. DreamWorks Animation's executive vice president of feature productions, Erica Burton, told employees that the in-house team will handle all creative front end until this test run arrangement and 1 hour of production, splitting the asset builds 50-50 with Imageworks. The Sony studio will also be responsible for 20 minutes of production, including the entire sequences. So that's pretty much the big thing with what they are doing right now. It's not only the fact that we would get these layoffs, but also that now we are going to start seeing DreamWorks animated movies, or specifically their visuals, being produced at Sony Pictures Imageworks. Now, one thing I want to go and start off is regarding all the layoffs, because it's kind of a coincidence, and a very unfortunate coincidence, that what we saw from Pixar a few months ago is now happening with DreamWorks Animation. And whatever people claim that Disney is suffering from, whatever is making their businesses look bad and that it's making their businesses go on a downfall, all the other major studios are going through the exact same thing. And that is the case with NBC Universal. They are no different than either Disney or Warner Brothers, where they have to go and try to go and really cut down costs, which in this case is, as it has mentioned here, the fact that they got to go and cut down 20% of production costs. And just like Pixar, they had to go and cut out 70 jobs at DreamWorks Animation. Now, we didn't necessarily get any names, or we didn't get any big, any like familiar names that unfortunately got let go. Because I remember in the last one, one of the people, Angus MacLane, who was a longtime Pixar veteran and recently directed Lightyear, he was unfortunately let go. And there was another one, Galen something. Chatwall, you could go and fill me in on this. Another longtime Pixar veteran who is mostly known for quote-unquote saving Toy Story 2. And they ended up getting fired throughout that whole thing. Yeah, Galen Sussman. Yes. Thank you very much, Chatwall. So yeah, like there was that moment that happened at Pixar, and we didn't necessarily get any names of who got let go at DreamWorks Animation, but it still sucks though that those 70 jobs got let go. And I do wish all those employees the best to go and get themselves back up on their feet. I know it's not their fault, and they really were under a very unfortunate situation, but hopefully things can quickly turn around for them. So I just want to go and express my sympathies. But also, one thing that is very alarming, and that some people in the animation industry are looking into, and they're even saying that it is very concerning, is that we are seeing more and more studios being outsourced. But the big significant thing with DreamWorks Animation is that they were one of the few major animation studios in California that were actually producing their animations in-house. Like, you have to realize the reality that those kinds of studios are actually becoming more and more of an endangered species, because studios are looking for ways in order to go and save up on cash so that they can so that they don't have to spend too much while they're producing animated films or animated projects or anything like that. So that's why we are seeing more studios making animation in Canada. Why we are seeing companies, rather it be like Sony Pictures Imageworks in Vancouver, or even some studios in Montreal, where they would have more big name animated features where they would be released in theaters worldwide, and they would be the ones to go and actually produce the animation. And even and keep in mind with DreamWorks, with what they are doing right now, they're not the only ones. It's understandable for Sony Pictures Animation to get their animation done there because, well, technically it is a Sony thing, it's like from Sony to Sony. But then again, there's also the factor of Netflix also doing the same thing with what they've done with Sea Beast, or even with Warner Brothers, where they actually outsource their animation pretty commonly, rather it be with Imageworks, with Smallfoot, or even with Animal Logic in Australia, wherein they had to do stuff like the Lego movies, or even the DC League of Super Pets. More and more, we are seeing work going away from Los Angeles, and now they're moving into places such as Canada. And for me, I feel very mixed upon the matter, because on one hand, it does make me proud as a Canadian animation fan that we are seeing some of the best and some of the most popular and some of the most innovative animation actually being produced in my country, and not just in Vancouver, but even in my home city of Montreal, where at Sony Pictures Imageworks, with the Vancouver people, they would go and do some incredible things, like with Across the Spider-Verse, for example. But even in Montreal, we actually do have more and more big name animated features actually being produced there, especially with studios such as Cinesite and Mikros. Now, it's not entirely them that would go and produce it. They do have other studios like in France and stuff like that where they would go and collaborate with. But some of the animation that was done in movies such as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, and even just recently with Paw Patrol, the Mighty Movie, they were primarily done in Montreal. And that's something that, you know, again, I feel definitely proud of as an animation fan, where, you know, this is starting to become more and more as the place to be an animator. If you want to work on some of the big name titles that would come out on the big screen, then honestly, come to Vancouver or come to Montreal. But there is a part of me that is disappointed and a little bit sad, because the reason why we are seeing Canada increasingly becoming this major animation capital is because of all the wrong reasons. Because the studios just want to go and say, you know, just make a quick buck. And it's not just because of the tax break that they would be offered, rather it be in British Columbia or even in Quebec or whatever, but it's primarily the fact that those studios so far, even those big ones, they're not unionized yet. And considering we are seeing more and more studios demanding that they would get unionized or that they would get representation from the Animation Guild, like we're seeing these studios starting to like move away from all the woes and like being commanded by the union, so that like they have to take importance for the well-being of the animators and stuff like that. But now they're trying to go and exit it so that they can go and make a quick buck, so that they could really save up by going into either Vancouver or in Montreal, so that, you know, they don't have to pay as much to their workers and to make them like work even longer than before. I mean, like, that's the big reason why the controversy in relation to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse happened. Like, the reason why Phil Lord and Chris Miller have been able to abuse their animators for so many years, rather it be for the Spider-Verse movies, the Lego movies, or Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs or whatever, is because those people are non-union. They don't have union rules that are able to protect themselves, and that they can put their well-being first to say, no, I cannot do that because, well, that would be crossing the line with the union. That, you know, and that's the major thing. And that's why we see, like, even if there are many studios in California that are unionized, rather it be DreamWorks Animation or Sony Pictures Animation, the place where the animators actually make the animation is in non-union areas, such as Sony Pictures Imageworks in Vancouver, or even in places like Cinesite or Mikros in Montreal. And that's why for me, it just feels massively conflicting. And as much as I would love to see more and more of these studios get unionized, because that is also something that I will say is like a bit of a silver lining, we are starting to see a bit more representation from the Animation Guild, or more union representation in Canada. It's only starting, but hey, at least like we are taking our first steps to have animation studios in Canada starting to be unionized. But I feel like if we are reaching that point, that like, let's say, for example, if Sony Pictures Imageworks gets unionized, then one thing I worry about is if either Sony or other companies would go and make some kind of major response, that they would go and try to fight back. And like, I can imagine like the worst case scenario would be like all the people at Sony Pictures Imageworks would go and vote to be unionized, that all the people there working are part of the union and stuff like that. And then Sony would go and make a drastic move that in order to save up on money, they would go and close down Sony Pictures Animation in favor of just distributing animated films, so that they can go and just finance movies that are from non-union work, and that they can just go and cash in on animation from there instead of producing their own, because it's at the point where it would be way too expensive, because not just the animation studio in Los Angeles, or Culver City in this case, but also the one in Vancouver would also be unionized. And that's the thing that really does make it tricky, because yeah, even if like the Writers Guild got a massive win from the strike and got everything that they demanded from studios, that's still not going to stop studios from finding ways in order to desperately save money. And they're certainly going to do so with animators. And that's why we are seeing Los Angeles becoming less and less popular of an animation like an animation powerhouse, and places like Vancouver and Montreal is becoming a bit more of an animation capital, which on one hand, like I said before, on one hand it's great, but then again, it's all for the wrong reasons, and it really is just to save up on cash and to go dodge unions altogether. So that's why, honestly, I can see how it can be very concerning with DreamWorks Animation and what they are doing now, that they're going to become less and less of a fully in-house studio, that we're going to see a whole lot less animated films from DreamWorks that are produced exclusively at DreamWorks, and they're going to be spreading their wings where they're going to be demanding other people to go and make their films. I mean, they've already started. They've already taken their first steps with films like Captain Underpants, the first movie, or there was another one. What was it? Spirit Untamed, another movie that they got outsourced. Like, unfortunately, we are going to see more and more of that, which, I mean, like, this is not to say that the quality is going to diminish. I'm sure those movies themselves are going to be fine, but it does make it worrying that we are seeing the animation industry and the landscape of animation in general is going to really change. Like, this is a matter about how jobs are going to be affected, and that animators will have to go and migrate to other countries. Like, if they really want to go and follow their animation dreams, well, they may no longer have to go to California, and instead they'll have to move to either Vancouver or to Montreal or Toronto or something like that. Like, if they really want to work on those big name projects, they'll have to go there. And meanwhile, in LA and stuff like that, we're going to see more diminishing studios that work exclusively there. Like, the animations that are going to be produced is not just going to be in Los Angeles, and in-house studios are going to become more and more rare. And who knows, some people are even predicting maybe Disney might even do the same thing. Like, so far with both Disney and Pixar, they make their animations in-house, I believe. But I mean, who's to say that maybe in the future Disney is going to go and demand a third party to go and produce their animations, rather it be in Montreal or maybe in Vancouver or something. I mean, the possibility is out there, and I'm not saying that it will happen, but with how animation is, with the fact that we are seeing many other studios doing so, like Paramount, Sony, and now even DreamWorks doing so, like, it could inevitably happen. So it's a bit of a complex subject, but I feel like this is something that's worth talking about and is worth making animation fans aware of how the landscape of animation is going to be, especially for aspiring animators. Like, if your dream is to one day become a big name director, or you want to work in the next big animated movie and stuff like that, well, you'll have to consider your options outside of California, because, like, yeah, like, if you want to go and work on a DreamWorks movie or a Sony movie or stuff like that, yeah, you may want to think at another place. You may want to think maybe either in Vancouver or something. So just to give you a bit of a heads up. All right, so with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and I want to ask you all, how do you feel about the current status of DreamWorks Animation? What do you think about their new move about starting to make animated features with the help of Sony Pictures Imageworks and the layoffs and stuff like that? I would love to know your... Oh, excuse me. I would love to know your thoughts on that. Okay, let's see now. Oh, I see how it is. When it happens to DreamWorks, it's a reflection on the sad state of the animation industry. But when it happens to Disney, it's a cause of celebrating and laughter because lol, woke Disney is dying. I mean, technically, I'm not saying that. But yeah, this is really sad for DreamWorks. Seems their renaissance ended before it began. But on the plus side, if Sony is animating DreamWorks movies, that means we can finally have the Monsters vs. Aliens / Hotel Transylvania crossover we've all been waiting for. No, that's not how it works. The thing is with Sony Pictures Imageworks, despite the fact that technically they are owned by Sony Pictures, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are exclusive to Sony Pictures. They are more of a third party, and they function a bit like a independent studio, where it's not just like animated movies that they would go and produce. They've also done so many visual effects. Like Disney would often go to Sony Pictures Imageworks to get some to get some visual effects work, rather it be for like the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland movies, or especially the Guardians of the Galaxy films. That was actually done by Sony Pictures Imageworks. But yeah, no, like in terms of copyright and stuff like that, that's honestly not how it works. But anyways, with all of this, it's going to be a dark time for the animation industry, not just with all the layoffs that's been happening from either Disney, Warner Brothers, or DreamWorks, but now having all these studios trying to cut costs by outsourcing their animation in other countries. I've heard some reports that this was done due to the bombing of Ruby Gillman, but if that's the case, then Universal literally did this to themselves. It's very unfortunate that whenever a DreamWorks movie bombs, stuff like this happens. Yeah, I mean, like, it does sound very possible. I mean, considering I think it's safe to say that DreamWorks Animation and Universal did lose millions of dollars on the failure of Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken. However, it's hard to really say, because it's really a decision by the big corporation. It's really because of NBC Universal, and they're the ones who are demanding it. And even in this article here on Animation Magazine, they even listed down different reasons of like what is it that made the company lose money, whether it be with they said like unexpected box office swings, rising production costs, and delays due to the writers and actors strike. So there's a whole bunch of reasons. So you can't necessarily pinpoint to one reason as to why this even happened. I'm sure like even if Ruby Gillman made a bit of profit, this still would have occurred. Let's see, what else do we have here? What other comments? This is troubling for DreamWorks Animation when it comes to the future of producing their animation. I think this is due to three things: the Ruby and Gillman bomb, the ongoing strike, and the rise of production costs in the US. I know some upcoming movies like Kung Fu Panda 4 will still continue to be made at their own studios, but the rest will be made at another studio like Sony Imageworks is concerning. I know they were not in a bad position back in 2015, but I do wish them well right now. Exactly. I think like at the end of the day, what we can do now is just hope for the best for the 70 people who did get laid off, because they're the ones who ultimately got a bit of the short end of the stick here. What other comments would there be? Let's see. This is the crazy thing with DreamWorks. Every time we check back on them, they're either at the top of their game or hanging on by a thread. And while I'm glad that this isn't losing the entire Redwood division bad, it's still pretty disappointing to see all these layoffs. I will say, however, that the Sony Imageworks team taking the helm does sound intriguing to me a little. I'm of the opinion that they've done a bunch of great work in animation, and insert obvious reference to 2017 film here. Yeah, I think I know which one you mean there, pal. Is it Smurfs The Lost Village? I think you're talking about Smurfs The Lost Village. Yeah, but I mean, like, another thing that I would say is that even though this would be a bit risky, this is also why that this is a high demand to have Sony Pictures Imageworks to be unionized. That if there is any studio in this world that so desperately needs unions because of how much they are high on demand and because of how they've been poorly treated by filmmakers like Phil Lord and Chris Miller, then yeah, they need unions ASAP. They need that kind of representation. All right, let's see what other comments. Okay, let's see. This is unfortunate news to hear about DreamWorks cutting costs. I thought that they are going to be okay after they had a successful year last year. I guess Ruby Gillman really screwed them over, all thanks to Universal. I really do hope everyone will find a new job soon. But this is concerning because I feel like Disney Animation will be the only ones producing in-house in SoCal. I don't want animation jobs to be taken away from the artist that needs to pay the bills. This is just terrible news. Yeah, this is it really is one of those things. Like, this is the reason why I wanted to go and talk about this, because this is something in which when you step back and look into the big picture and you look into what's going to happen in the rest of the decade, yeah, this is not going to be good news for the people in California. Like, if you work in the animation industry in California, you might want to pay attention to this, because this does not look good. All right, I think I'll read one more comment before we jump onto our next break. Let's see here. I didn't read this one. Okay. With all of this, it's going to be a dark time for the animation industry, not just with all the layoffs that happen from either Disney, Warner Brothers, or DreamWorks, but now having all of these studios trying to cut costs by outsourcing their animation in other countries. I've heard some reports that this was done due to the bombing of Ruby Gillman, but if that's the case, then you... Oh, no, wait, no, I really did. I actually did read that one. I'm sorry, folks. Let's just go with this one. This is really sad and unfortunate for people working in the animation industry. Kudos to Canada for making great animation for big studios, but even with that, it's sad that the quality may decrease when relying on third-party studios. I'm concerned that Disney and other studios might do the same thing. Again, outside studios can do good with animation, but the main studios should do the craft more justice. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think this is going to be something that will hurt the quality of the pictures themselves, but this is more a subject in regards to working conditions and the jobs of animators in the future. I think that's the big subjects that this is all about here. All right, so we're going to go and take a quick break, and when we do return, we will have one update regarding one of the strike's most notorious scabs, and you will see in the long run why is it that scabbing is a bad idea, so stay tuned for that. Oh, are we back? Oh, yes. Oh, boy, we're back already. Oh, boy. Sorry, folks, I just got a little bit distracted, but we are back. We are back. All right, it's all good. Now, when it comes to our next story over here, we will be returning to a controversy that I talked about in a recent past episode of Animat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, the whole Drew Barrymore drama. Ah, yes, that thing was quite a mess, and I know a lot of people say that she was pretty dumb, in which that whole thing happened and she could have just waited a little bit more until the strike was officially over. But, I mean, I would argue that technically nobody knew when the strike would be done. I mean, it's not like something that, like, oh, okay, like, we knew that this was going to come or something like that. So, I mean, it was just like this massive coincidence that, well, funny enough, it just doesn't make Drew Barrymore look better. However, keep in mind that very similar to COVID, there are some long-term consequences that would come with scabbing. And that is especially the case with her new relationship, or what is now her past relationship, with her writers. Yes, the Drew Barrymore show has been confirmed that it will be coming back on October 16th, which is actually a week from when I am recording this. However, the big headline of all this is that even though the show is going to be returning, the writers will not. Specifically, the head writers of the Drew Barrymore show, Chelsea White, Christina Kinnon, and Liz Coe. They were offered to come back once, like, the strike was over and, like, they got their new deal and all that kind of stuff, you know? Like, they were offered the job, but they decided to refuse to do so because of the entire drama that Drew Barrymore caused with the Drew Barrymore show and coming back during the strike and all that mess. In fact, before I continue, let me just go and give you a quick summary about what happened. Maybe you may have forgotten about it, but just to go and quickly sum up the whole controversy related to Drew Barrymore, in the middle of September, Drew Barrymore actually announced that she was going to bring back the Drew Barrymore show during the middle of both the actor strike and the writer strike. However, the big problem with it is that the fact that she would bring it back would actually conflict with the interests of the writer's strike, in which she would be considered a scab by doing so and a betrayer to the writers, because at the beginning of the strike, Drew Barrymore showed that she wanted to be a full-on supporter for both the writers and the actors, but it no longer seemed to be the case, and she just wanted to go and bring back the show. And during the small time that she did bring it back and did a few live recordings and stuff, the controversy got even worse when there were some people who actually got kicked out because they had buttons that showed that they supported the writer's strike. And it pretty much became one controversy on top of another, and it just made the PR of both Drew Barrymore and the Drew Barrymore Show feel like an entire nightmare. And she tried to make an apology video, but it was just god-awful. It was an absolute failure. Even with all the crocodile tears that she would go and shed, it just did not work out. And it only made matters so much worse. And it took, like, give or take a week, but inevitably Drew Barrymore said that, okay, fine, I'm going to wait until the strike is over when I bring back my show. Now, technically, Drew Barrymore was not the only one who had this kind of controversy. Bill Maher went through the same thing, but it's just Drew Barrymore was like the poster child of this kind of controversy, and at that moment was the poster child of scabbing. But now that her show would come back, her writers did still feel massively betrayed. It's not like when she agreed to go and postpone the premiere and stuff like that, you know, they're still not cool with it. It's not like everything is okay. It's not a case of like you just say you're sorry and everything is all back to normal. No, they felt betrayed and they refused to go back, which is why now the Drew Barrymore Show is going to go and interview some new writers to go and continue the series. In fact, just to go and read you a passage here from my source on The Hollywood Reporter, it says that with the WGA strike now over, the show is set to come back on October 16th, and those writers have declined an offer to return with it, according to sources. The production is now interviewing new writers and will be in compliance with the Guild. As for White, Kinnan, and co., all three were visible and vocal in their protests during the show's initial return to production in mid-September. The trio of women who shared the title co-head writers and have been with the series since season 1 could be seen picketing outside of Drew's Manhattan studio on multiple days, with signs that reads, "Honk if you love union labor," or Drew's news strikes. And they even went further to go and talk about their opinion about Drew Barrymore bringing back her show and how they definitely felt heartbroken about it and felt like, you know, backstabbed. It even says here on September 11th, which was the show's first day back in production, they told The Hollywood Reporter that they found out Drew was returning not from their boss or colleagues, but rather via audience ticket giveaways that have been posted on social media. It is a bummer to hear that the show is going back because it sends a message that union writers are not valuable. I understand that everybody has to do what they feel best for them. For me and the WGA writers of the show, it's important for us to stick with our unions. We deserve a fair contract, so we are here today outside. And even back then, when they were asked about if they would want to return to the show, they said, yeah, no comment. But yeah, you know, honestly, I feel like this is kind of, this feels like a bit of a coincidence, because I do recall the last time I talked about it, and when I really went in full about the entire Drew Barrymore controversy, I remember one of the final things that I talked about is the fact that now that she has a reputation of being a scab, this is going to be following her for the rest of her life. This is going to be a scar to her career, in which this will be a bit of a detriment, and the way people will perceive Drew Barrymore is going to be a lot more different, and unfortunately a bit more negative than what it used to be, like before the strikes and before all of this. Like beforehand, everybody, like most people love Drew Barrymore, but nowadays Drew Barrymore is just one of those names that you don't necessarily want to be compared to. Like even during the Thanksgiving dinner, like when all my relatives came to my place and we all had dinner and stuff like that, I remember like there were some like there was one of them that was compared by Drew Barrymore, and they were like, yeah, no thank you. Ugh. Like they winced when they heard the name of Drew Barrymore, because nowadays she doesn't have that great of a reputation, especially with this entire incident of the strike. And again, not everyone is going to immediately go and forgive her. Just because she finally did the right thing, that doesn't necessarily mean that she's all good now. That doesn't mean we could just go and quickly forgive and forget. Especially with the fact that this is something that took days. It took days to try to pressure her not to go and do this. And even after trying to make an apology, even after going through it with some recordings and stuff like that, like it took about give or take a week for her to finally make that right decision. And really, it doesn't necessarily feel like a genuine decision either. It feels like a decision that was made so that the PR can finally stop being negative. It doesn't feel like something that truly is a decision made to go and actually support the strikers or acknowledging their mistakes. It really is something that is that bad. And especially I understand completely where the writers are coming from in this, especially after Drew Barrymore's failed apology. The fact that she would go and say that she wants to do this for everyone. She wants to do this for the audience. She wants to do this for the fans, and she wants to do this for her workers as well. But by doing so, you're completely ditching the writers. You're saying that they don't care. Like while they are out there trying to fight for a fair contract to go and save their jobs, you're just going to go and continue the show without them. That for Drew Barrymore, the way that she framed her apology is that everyone is important except for the writers. And not even once she even she never even mentioned about her own writers for her show in terms of bringing it back. So that's why there is this long-term consequence of being a scab. And at this point, I would even go as far and say that, when it comes to the Drew Barrymore show, the fact that we're seeing her own writers moving on from the Drew Barrymore show, I think we are seeing the beginning of the end of the Drew Barrymore show. Now, I will say, though, when it comes to Drew Barrymore herself, I think in the long run, she will be okay. I think, honestly, yeah, she's going to take a bit of a hit with this entire scabbing controversy, but eventually, she'll be fine. She'll still be in, TV shows and movies and making guest appearances and stuff like that. I'm not necessarily too worried about her because, what she has done, while bad, it's not like Russell Brand bad, where he would do something that's outright criminal, Like with Drew Barrymore, yeah, it's bad, but it's something that over time she'll probably recover from it. It's not like her career will suddenly find new heights, but I think she will ultimately be okay. But for the Drew Barrymore show, however, I think we are going to see the beginning of the end where it is on its last legs. The fact that the show, especially itself, went through this massive PR nightmare, that went through this major hell, and now it is pretty much synonymous with being a scab. I think it's going to be something that will make people really lose interest in watching the Drew Barrymore show. It's going to make people move on from actually watching that series because, well, that sense of joy, that genuineness, that selflessness, it's no longer going to be there. And at that point, like with the dipping views, then we're going to see like the final episodes of the Drew Barrymore show. However, I will state that I don't think this is going to be something that will happen immediately. It's not like suddenly next month they're going to say that the Drew Barrymore show is canceled. I think this is something that will take time. The Drew Barrymore show is still going to be on in 2024, but I think later in that year, it will see its end. I think we will eventually hear in the next several months that the final episodes of the Drew Barrymore show will be happening. It's very similar to what we have seen with Ellen, actually. You probably remember the whole controversy related to Ellen DeGeneres and how much of a Hollywood monster she actually is. But her show still continued over time, and I think like about a year or so after the whole controversy, that's when they announced that the Ellen DeGeneres show is going to end. And I think it's going to be a bit of the same thing with the Drew Barrymore show. Like, the series is still going to continue, but I think over time, like maybe near the end of 2024 or even at the start of 2025, I think that's when we are going to see the end of the series. That's when things are going to be done, and then, well, people will just have to go and move on from the whole thing, where again, we do see what are the long-term consequences of backstabbing unions and trying to continue work without them. Once you're considered a scab, it's going to be a pretty nasty reputation that you're going to carry for the rest of your life. And yeah, even if Drew Barrymore will be disassociated from it, like a bit of that scab is going to be there. I don't think like we're suddenly going to see Drew Barrymore return as like a major A-list celebrities appearing in many big name movies and in many different cinematic universes and stuff like that. But even at that though, like the scab is going to set limits for her, but she will probably be fine. In fact, I think it might be at the point right now where Drew Barrymore is probably better off without the series. I mean, like it's already been like the Drew Barrymore show is already corrupted with this controversy, and that's going to be something that will be carried with her, similarly to what happened with Ellen DeGeneres. So yeah, I think right now the Drew Barrymore's days are going to be numbered. But again, overall, this is just a lesson of why you don't scab. This is why you don't backstab unions, because when you do so, they could be a pretty vengeful bunch, and you will be seen as someone who only cares about themselves and not care about the well-being of others. And when you are that kind of selfish person, it's actually going to limit your life like very harshly. So honestly, it feels like a very important update to go and note. I just feel like, considering that I've already talked about in full about the Drew Barrymore controversy in the past, I feel like, you know, like it's worth discussing about what it is right here. And honestly, I do congratulate Chelsea White, Christina Kinnan, and Liz Coe on making that decision to just move on from the Drew Barrymore show. You know, you three definitely do deserve better, and hopefully you'll find a better opportunity in the future soon. All right, so with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and now I would like to ask you all, how do you feel about the controversy related to the Drew Barrymore show? And how do you feel about the writers quitting the Drew Barrymore show after everything that happened? Do you feel like they're in the right on this? Or do you side more with Drew Barrymore? I would love to know what you think on this. Let's see. What comments would we have? Oh, surprisingly, we only got one so far. Let's see. Well, this backfired. I absolutely do not blame the writers for not wanting to return, because it basically feels that Drew Barrymore basically betrayed the writers. It honestly makes me wish she probably would have done what Matt Walsh did with Dancing with the Stars, in which he decided to not return to the show until the strike ended, to respect the writers. And by the way, just letting you know, folks, no, we're not talking about conservative commentator Matt Walsh, who takes pride in his fascism. We're literally talking about the good Matt Walsh. This is an actor by the name of Matt Walsh. Unlike the conservative Matt Walsh, this is a Matt Walsh who actually loves America and has real American values, such as the example of what he has shown with what he did with Dancing with the Stars. So just want to make that clarification, because I know it was like, that was a big controversy when Dancing with the Stars revealed it's like, they hired Matt Walsh. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, it's not that Matt Walsh. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I'll go and delete that post. All right, what else do we have here? If Drew Barrymore hadn't done the scabbing while the writer's strike was still ongoing at the time, then she wouldn't receive backlash and lost her old writers in the first place. She'll likely be okay for 1 or 2 more seasons of her show before being canceled and returning to acting either on a TV series or a movie, from my guess. But again, she should have waited until the writer's strike ended. Yeah, exactly. But then again, like I've already talked in full about that. Anyways, did you know Barrymore, Barrymore show situation is something censored, different than the Ellen situation, than Ellen DeGeneres situation, minors, that exact situation. Jimmy Fallon is going through with this mess, treating an actual physical and something of, I don't know, something censored again of this workers versus versus Drew Barrymore. And yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just go from there. Anyways, let's get back into another comment here. They're screwing up, and then there's Drew Barrymoring up. The strike has shown studios and many more that it is far worse for them business-wise to not support the writers and actors than to support them. If she didn't backstab the writers, then maybe her show would have lasted a few more years, but now it's now inevitable that it will just crash and burn. Yeah, exactly. I feel like this is more of a case that this is more just a case in which like it'll probably go on for, like another commenter said, like from KS, he said that it'll go on for like 1 or 2 seasons, and that's pretty much it. Then then like the show's just gonna be done. Again, I'm guessing either by the end of 2024 or the beginning of 2025, we're either gonna see the end of the Drew Barrymore show or an announcement that the Drew Barrymore show will end. All right, I think I'll read one more comment before we go into the last one. She may have done the right thing after scabbing, but no matter what you did, people will never forget what you did. I know where Drew Barrymore came from, but she shouldn't bring back the show during the dark times. It's a really bad move. But here we are now. Her show is coming to an end soon. Sorry, with scabbing, people won't forgive you. And a big update with writers, they voted 99% on the deal. Okay, so it's almost unanimous that they're going to move forward with the contract. And I mean, understandably so. Like, I already talked about, like, what's in the contract, and it's just godforsaken amazing. All right, so I think from here, we will go and take another break. And when we do return, we will go into the grand finale. And this time around, oh boy, we're going to be going back to our favorite failing social media platform, Twitter. And this time around, it really does feel like it's just been getting worse and worse and worse. And now, folks, we have reached the end of it. It is now time that we will be talking about the grand finale. And with this grand finale, we will be talking about the big ultimate internet calamity that is Twitter. And yes, people will say that technically it is called X now, but I mean, let's be honest. Who in their right mind would be calling it X? Everybody's been calling it Twitter, So the name remains. We're calling it Twitter. But ever since Elon Musk took over, we all know that it's just been getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I know that this is far from the first time that I would go and discuss about an update about what Elon Musk wants to do or that Twitter has officially done. And it really does make the experience on the social media platform so much worse. And even right now, actually just a few days ago, there's been a new major update that they have done on Twitter that really is just causing more problems than it is solutions. And really, it's becoming far less of a reliable source to go and get any form of information. Oh, but don't you worry, folks, because it's about to go downhill from here. Because do you enjoy pressing the like button or pressing that button to go and reply, or you want to go and make retweets and stuff like that? Well, not anymore, because those options are going to be gone pretty soon. Well, not in their entirety, but at least the actions of doing so. Yes, Elon Musk has officially announced that one of his upcoming plans about what he wants to do with Twitter is that he wants to go and remove the action buttons from the timeline. So those little buttons where you got the option to either reply, retweet, or like a post, that's just going to be gone from the timeline itself. Now, the new update that I was talking about before was that Elon decided to go and completely remove headlines from article links. You know, when you would go and make a post on social media and it's a post either like with your video, or it would be an article from a website or from a news source and stuff like that. Well, no matter what it is, the people at Twitter, and Elon especially, decided to go and remove the headline. So now that article link is literally just the picture, and it's up to the person who posted to go and actually write down the headline. And as you could probably imagine, that is an absolute disaster, where not only misinformation would go and quickly spread, but it's also an easy way for viruses to go and infect people's phones and computers and stuff like that. And it's also something in which people could go and troll like crazy. Like, one of the first things that many people would go and do is that they would take articles that would go and talk about removing headlines, and they would go and make things up about Elon Musk. You know, say that he's a child groomer, that he passed away, that he's donating all his money to charity, or all that kind of crazy scenarios. Like, take the misinformation aspect that Elon would want to try to go and promote, which is what he's actually doing right now with the war in Israel, and try to throw it back on him. So already the removal of headlines has been proven to be a massive mess. But now things are about to get even worse with the removal of the action buttons, in which Elon stated, and I'm going to quote from my source here on Forbes, this is what he said on his post on Twitter, that those ugly URL cards with repetitive text were making my eyes bleed. So much better now. Yeah, says only Elon Musk and no one else in the world. Next, we'll remove all the action buttons with their superfluous interaction counts from the main timeline. Just view counts will show unless you tap into a post. This will greatly improve readability. So what he wants to do, it's not necessarily remove them in their entirety, but what he wants to do is that in your main timeline on Twitter, you will no longer be seeing any of the numbers for the replies, for the retweets, or for the likes, or anything like that. And if you do want to go and see them, then you have to press on it, on the actual post itself, to actually see the numbers. And what's more is that he also wants to go and remove the buttons themselves and replace them with different actions. There is one developer on Twitter who actually stated that they're thinking about maybe doing different, doing different gestures in order to have that new form of interactivity, where instead of pressing the button, you would have to go and double tap the post to give it a like. Or if you want to reply to it, then you have to go and swipe it. You know, try to think about all these different convoluted ideas instead of just giving it that single button that you can just go and do on your main timeline. So that's pretty much the idea of what Elon Musk wants to do. There's no confirmation if that is going to happen, but it is amongst Elon's plan to actually go and try that out. Okay. As a social media platform, I think it is safe to say that this idea is just absolutely ridiculous, because this is very similar to what he did with the with the checkmark thing, with that blue checkmark. He just took that idea and completely shattered it into pieces. He tried to fix something that had no trouble, that had no problems whatsoever, and completely ruined it. And this is the same thing that he is trying to do with all the action buttons. I mean, it's only Elon Musk fans who think that there would be a problem with just pressing a button, just pressing one button. You see, you know, like when you go on Twitter, you see a post that you do like, you just press the little heart button and boom, you expressed a like, and that's it. But apparently for people like Elon Musk and all his little fanboys, that's apparently a concept that's way too convoluted. That's just way too complicated. And now he has to go and put in some extra steps where not only can you not do it from your main timeline, but now you got to go and actually go to the post itself, and then instead of actually liking it, you can't just press a button. Now you got to go and do the double tap thing. You know, you got to do like some, now it's at the point where you have to go and make it just so convoluted, just turn it into this weird wacky ritual in which you know, it's something that isn't too complex. You know, just give it one like. Just press a button. Again, why do you have to go so far and mess as something as simple as just pressing a freaking button? But not only that, there's also another massive issue with this idea in general. It's the idea of just like even if that's not true, even if they decided that in the post itself, you could still go and press a button to either like, retweet, or reply, or anything like that, the fact that he is removing it from the main timeline in general, that's going to be a serious detriment to Twitter. This is honestly something that could literally just destroy the entire platform right there. Because when you take that away from the main timeline, then you're pretty much removing so much of the engagement. The fact that you have to put in extra steps, even if it is an additional tap, in order to make that kind of response, in order to do some kind of interaction, that's already too much. The fact that you're taking away that luxury, the fact that you're making it even harder to go and actually interact with the post itself, that's going to significantly decrease the engagement and significantly decrease the purpose for people to go and use Twitter. Because trust me, I feel like this is going to be an action that if and or when Elon is going to go and actually put that onto Twitter, that's going to be the moment where the engagement and people interacting with Twitter is going to take a massive drop. Because if it requires more time to actually do simple things like liking or replying and all that kind of stuff, then people are just going to be turned off and they're just going to go and move on. Because I know for a fact that other social media platforms like YouTube or Facebook, they're not going to go and conform to the change. They're not going to look at what Elon is doing and say, hey, yeah, sure, that's a great idea. Let's go and actually do that on our platform. They're not going to go and do it. You know, they're not going to go and remove that simplicity because Elon Musk did it. So at that point, it's going to turn more people off from using Twitter because it's at the point where now it feels more complicated to actually go and use. I mean, why do you want to purposely go and try to overcomplicate things? Why go and make something more complicated than just pushing a button? But I could go and tell you why he would go and do it. Now, technically, this is just my theory, but honestly, I can make an easy guess as to why Elon Musk wants to go and remove that option. Now, he would claim that it's more for the aesthetic of the timeline to look better and to make things easier to read. But I think it's because what Elon wants to do is destroy ratios. Because more often than not, Elon Musk and his fanboys would constantly be humiliated in his own platform. He would often see posts that would go against him and that it would gather massive numbers and that it would get like thousands upon thousands of likes, even more so than he would go and make his own posts. So in that regard, he doesn't want to face that humiliation. He doesn't want to be reminded that most people in his own platform actually hate his guts and especially hate his fans. So what he wants to do is remove the concepts of ratios entirely. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually deliberate of trying to make interactions more difficult than they would, because he would know that there are people out there, like, they wouldn't do it if it's not like super simple. The fact alone that it's going to be more complicated, that it requires extra steps to do something like replying or liking or anything like that, and it's going to be less encouraging for people to actually go and do any form of engagement in general. So less engagement means less ratios that can happen on the platform. And especially with the main timeline where you don't actually, like, whatever posts would be up there, the only thing that you will see is just view counts and that's it. And I mean, like, anybody who is more intelligent than an Elon Musk fanboy would know that the view counts are absolutely meaningless. So the thing is that with view counts, I think Elon just wants to make sure that, like, you know, like, this is the easy way for him to get ratios. You know, for him to say, my view count is bigger than yours, that makes my post better than you. But also he's trying to hide if people actually like it or actually does agree with it. Again, this is just a little bit of a theory, but I feel like that could be the reason why is it that Elon Musk wants to go and get rid of those options, because he ultimately wants to get rid of ratios and he's tired of being ratioed by people on the internet. So, but yeah, it just feels like it's just making things worse and worse for Twitter. And I think the worst part of it is the fact that technically, if you look down upon the list of what Elon wants to do, this is just one of them. And this is just minor compared to some of the other things that he would go announce. You know, like we saw that Elon Musk also, like, on top of removing the action buttons from the main timeline, he also stated that he wants to go and remove the block feature entirely, which I've already talked about before. And then there's also the possible idea of putting up a paywall for everyone, that everybody must pay in order to use Twitter. And that is going to be something that I can confirm will be a real Twitter killer right there. Like, once he puts up that platform, 99.99% of people in there are going to quit Twitter altogether, like flat out refuse to pay for the platform. And I know that there are some out there that will have a bit of a wait and see attitude. They're just going to go and say, like, well, you know, I'm just going to see it to believe it. I don't think that's real. I think it's just Elon lying, which that could be possible because Elon is also known to be a notorious liar, and that can be true. But at the same time, we recently just saw that Elon decided to go with his promise with getting rid of headlines. And I mean, this is on top of some of the other things that he would do that is currently destroying the platform, including ruining the checkmark, you know, ruining the verified system, and even like really engaging in hate speech, like really boosting up hate speech to the point that Twitter can be considered as a white nationalist platform. So, like, honestly, yeah, as crazy and stupid as they may sound, there is a possibility that they may happen. It's very similar to the Trump presidency, where anything and everything can happen. Even the most wild scenarios that you could think of, the chances of that happening are not zero. They are never zero. And it feels like you never know what's going to happen next, but you know for a fact that it's not going to be good. And I know some people at this point might be thinking about, well, we must go and do something. We must go and stop Elon Musk. But I mean, ultimately, Elon is the owner of Twitter. There's not many people who are actually on top of him. The only people who are on top of him are the banks, are the people that Elon actually loaned money in order to pay that $44 billion. Which brings me to my next point, and something that I want to go and bring up, because I feel like we are, like, even though we are at a pretty catastrophic state with Twitter, we're also at a very interesting state. Because let's be honest, it is a fact that the banks are upset with Elon Musk. They are not happy with him. The fact that even though, like, there are a few billions that Elon spent of his own money, but the grand majority of it, they're actually loans from the bank in order to actually pay that $44 billion. And right now, Twitter's value has significantly dropped. It's barely even a fraction of that 44 billion. In fact, I think like they might like I think it completely removed an entire digit of the value, where now it's like probably under 10 billion or something like that, but I could be wrong. But still though, I think we can agree it is a fact that banks are not happy with how Elon Musk is handling Twitter. But there is a rumor going around, and I could be wrong, but this is just something that I have heard. But there is a rumor that if things are not better with Twitter, then the banks are going to take Twitter away from Elon. That they've already lost billions of dollars, and in order to try to recoup costs, they're going to take the keys of Twitter away from Elon Musk, and the platform will be in full control of the banks. And there's nothing that Elon could do about it. But again, this is just a rumor. You know, take that with a grain of salt, but that is just something from what I have heard. And I mean, is that going to happen? Who knows? But I do feel like it is a possibility. We are seeing evidence as to how that could be true. But either way, though, this is honestly, like, this is just another example as to why is it I'm becoming less and less dependent on using Twitter. This is why I'm barely even on the platform in the first place, that I'm posting more either on my Facebook account or especially on Blue Sky. This is why I'm pretty much abandoning it altogether, and that really, in the long run, like I'm still on the factor. I know I've been saying it for quite a while, ever since like Elon Musk officially bought Twitter. So like it's been about a year now, but yeah, I think its days are going to be numbered. It's very much similar to what I talked about with the Drew Barrymore show, where at this rate, if Elon continues to make these kinds of decisions, if he continues to pander to legitimate white supremacists and to the actual like dangerous criminals and stuff like that, yeah, we're not going to see Twitter last that long. Or what could most likely happen, Elon's reign on Twitter might not last long. But either way, it's just one catastrophic event and one catastrophic choice over the other. And like even the idea of just hiding the numbers of like likes, retweets, and replies and stuff, it's just absolutely ridiculous. All right, so with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall, and now I want to ask you all, what are your thoughts on the whole Twitter scenario? How do you feel about the possible idea of Elon Musk removing the action buttons and the numbers from the main timeline? I would like to know what you think. And on top, I would like to also know what you think about what's been going on with the whole headlines controversy. All right, so let's see here. Wow, just when things couldn't get any worse, here comes Elon to think he's putting out the flames, only to realize that he's filling them with gasoline. It's so catastrophic that even places like Tumblr have more dignity and respect for people who post their content. No joke. I do want to know if we will all be there when it crashes and burns. It's a big mystery, but again, the chances of that happening are not zero. I would even say they are not low. Let's see. I officially escaped from Twitter late last month after dealing with the toxicity of that Wish trailer. This officially crossed the line for me. I quit the site just in time for this. I think it's just idiotic, but not surprising coming from Elon drunk. God, I need a drink. Side note, some good news for once. I finally visited Walt Disney Animation Studios last week, and it was a fantastic time visiting my friends that work there, and I also finally met Eric Goldberg. Ooh, awesome. Lucky, man. I wish I could have that opportunity, honestly. I can't just say awesome, because, like, that's just something like, that's a bucket list thing for me. Okay, what else do we have here? So what else can Elon Musk do to destroy Twitter? How about removing likes and replies and the retweet buttons? The fact that he's basically trying to remove the view count so he can become more popular is just making him look more pathetic. Seriously, I am so happy that I recently got a Blue Sky account, and I guarantee you, if the day ever comes that Blue Sky will be fully available to the public, that's going to be the final nail in the coffin for Twitter. Yeah, I would say if there is one choice that Elon Musk can do that's really going to screw things over with Twitter, if he bans pornography. Like, just imagine, like, this is the thing that ruined the reputation of Tumblr. The fact that they put in, like, a strict rule of not posting any adult, not safe for work content. That's what really, like, set that website on fire. Didn't necessarily kill it, but man, did it do some real damage. And I can imagine if Elon would go and make that choice of fully removing pornography, like you're not allowed posting any lewd pics or anything sexy or any full frontal nudity or anything like that, that's when it's going to be game over. That's when you're going to see a significant amount of people abandoning that website. Now, will he do that? I don't know, but honestly, I feel like that is going to be a massive possibility. Let's see now. What else is there? This year has been quite a calamity for Twitter, eh? Removing the block feature and action buttons and ruining the check mark. It really goes to show that Elon wants to kill the platform. What's crazy is that despite the calamity, people still do regularly post on Twitter. But even with that, it's not the same. I do wish the bank would buy Twitter because they could do a better job of handling it. I'm just happy that Blue Sky is more fun and clean. I'm glad that you like my art I made for you. Oh, on my birthday. You're very... Yeah, thank you for the art. It was actually very nice. Let's see. What else is there? Well, this is obviously really dumb. I highly doubt that this is going to happen because every time a new update is announced, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't happen or rarely changes it. Remember when he said he was going to remove the block feature? So far, the block feature is still there. I'm tired of the whole Twitter is dying narrative because for me, I have a hard time to go to other sites like Instagram and Threads. Admittedly, I don't have the biggest following, but still. And continues on with Blue Sky, but yeah. I don't know, man. Do you want to stay? That's what I want to know, man. Like, do you really want to stay in that toxicity? Do you want Twitter to still be alive? And again, I know there are people who are like, I'm going to see it to believe it. But I mean, Elon went through it with the whole idea of removing the headline of like the headlines and article links. Who's to say that maybe he will move forward with the block feature or even with the whole paywall feature? That could honestly happen. Again, with how insane the scenario is, the chances are not zero. So I'm just putting it out there. Let's see. Once again, for the third bajillion time in a row, Elon Musk is doing something stupid once again, and this time is removing pretty much everything like the like and retweet button, for example. If he does go through with it, more and more people will abandon Twitter altogether. Does that mean you will finally quit Twitter soon, Matt? Because things are not going to be better anytime soon. This is crazy as heck right now. I mean, I mean, it's at the point, I don't know if I would say I would quit Twitter, but I have been using it less and less. Again, I've already said this before, but lately I've only been using it either to promote my work, either to retweet some of the posts from Kat Cressida when she would talk about something related to Disney or show a Disney clip, or just calling out some, or like calling out stupid people, like calling out like either like the anti-woke mob or like whatever stupid controversy is going on. Like whenever I would have dumb hot takes, I would just throw it in there. I think ultimately when it's at the point when like if the block feature does get removed for sure, or if there's a paywall, that's when I'm no longer going to be using Twitter. All right, and I believe with that said, that should do it for this episode of Animat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. Thank you all so much for joining me on this, and hopefully maybe for next time we will have more animation news, because I know that things have been a little bit dry, but hey, at least we made it out with something a little bit fun. And I would like to go and state that if you guys would like to go and follow more crazy adventures of Animat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, then all you have to do is subscribe to the Animat Live Twitch channel or the Animat's Crazy Cartoon Cast YouTube channel. And on top of that, don't forget to go and follow me on whatever podcast service you're listening to, whether it be on Spotify, Google, Amazon, or iTunes. And with all that said and done, I would like to say thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for watching. And until next time, see you later, dudes.